everyone. I'm Kathleen Rudolph, and I am here today with Larry Evans and Chris Brown. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hi, Kathleen.
Chris has been an actor in the community for a very long time, and we've worked together at least 9 shows, I think. And so we're here to ask him some questions. Chris, can you tell us, when did you first get the acting bug?
I have an extremely dim memory of putting on a very amusing show for my parents as a young child. At least they found it amusing. But more organized than that was when I was a Cub Scout. And my poor mother was the den mother, if that's what they were called. And we were to celebrate with other Cub Scout troops the admission of Alaska into the United States, which sort of dates me, doesn't it? It's the year of our Lord, 1959. And so we put together a skit where we had cardboard boxes with scouts in them as dog sleds, dogs. And then I think I was the driver, and we didn't know how to get them off stage. And so I suggested that I try various commands that didn't work, and then I would say, "Oh, mush," and they would all take off.
Oh, that's great.
My mother found this very clever, and I found this very clever too, but I was in 4th grade.
Not counting your high school and grade schools, what's the first show you were in?
The first real show I was in was my 6th grade show. We must have been studying social studies that year. I don't know if they still study social studies, but I was playing a South American plantation owner, and I had a big Panama hat, and I came on stage, and actually 2 things happened. The first was that there was a painted hat rack on a flat with a nail sticking out, and I hung my big Panama hat on the hook, and they got a big laugh because of the paradox that you couldn't really hang your hat on a flat. But my big moment came when I echoed, I think, a contemporary coffee advertisement. I think it was Maxwell House. It was something like, "Our coffee has 23 beans in every cup." And so I said that, and this vast wave of laughter came out of the darkness. And I thought, ooh. So the rest is history.
That is hysterical. That's the little things we remember, right?
Oh, I know.
That's right.
Do you have a favorite theater or movie actor?
Well, I don't go to movies. I like to read. But if I did go to movies, hands down, it would be Christopher Walken. I discovered Christopher Walken a long time ago in a little film he made called The Dogs of War, when he was a mercenary in Africa. And I've been a fan ever since. Mm-hmm. Talk about a man who's in touch with his impulses.
Yes.
Not only does he live in the moment, he is the moment.
He is the moment. That's great. Did you have a mentor when you started out?
Well, I got into the drama club in junior high, which was a thrill for me. And a couple of people ran it. One of them was Mr. Melody, who was the 8th grade history teacher. And Mr. Melody himself was an actor, and he would tell us, he was in the Mousetrap. He told us about that. And he had gone to see Kiss Me Kate and told us not to pay too much attention to the lyrics in Brush Up Your Shakespeare. How he thought we would get connected with that, I'm not sure, but we were all very interested to hear that.
Did you ever get great advice from him, great acting advice?
I'm sure I did, but it's so long ago, I don't remember what it was.
How about great acting advice from anyone in your life?
Well, again, it's been an awfully long time. A big move for me was that around the summer of my senior year in high school and my freshman year in college, I got hooked up with taking lessons at the Hedgerow Theater School, connected with the Hedgerow Theater. And the Hedgerow Theater back in the day, the 20s and 30s, had been a very major place that introduced a lot of very major people. And it was run back then by a fellow named Jasper Dieter, who was quite elderly when I knew him, but he was still teaching. And Jasper Dieter had known O'Neill and had been the first Smithers in the original Emperor Jones and Provincetown Players. And he had as his co-teacher a lady named Rose Shulman, who had been on Broadway with The Great and the Near Great. And she would sit in her chair smoking cigarettes with her stockings down around her feet and drinking something. And she'd look at you and she'd say, "Oh God, that was terrible." She was quite a character. So that made me feel really, grown up and professional doing that. And then I acted some in college too, but then I didn't, of course, in graduate school or as a teacher.
What happened at your worst audition?
I don't really have too many horror stories on that score. I was once asked by somebody what that was supposed to be.
Oh.
And the only other thing I could think of was I've had twice now the experience of doing a British accent for something, and the director saying, "And do you do a British accent?" Not very encouraging.
That reminds me, I think I auditioned one time with a British accent and they thought I was doing JFK.
Great.
Now, I know you played God already in a play, but a role you've always wanted to play.
Well, I always thought that my answer to that one would be George and Virginia Woolf, and certainly I wouldn't turn that down if I was offered to it. But I looked over my list for this occasion, and actually it's been quite a while since I played a serious part. I have to go back to Julius Caesar and Shylock with Sweet Tea Shakespeare in Fayetteville. I really think the parts I would most like to play are ones you talked about, Larry, Moonlight and Magnolias, or the companion one, Strange Thing.
Right.
Two people writing exactly the same subject at pretty much the same time. I'd love to do those. Of course, the problem is that there are only about 4 people in the cast.
What type of actor do you think is best to be on stage with?
Well, I think I, like everybody else, would say an actor who's very generous with their energy. I love playing with Jenny Anglem, fortunately. She's that way. Marissa's that way. Larry's that way, of course. I think Mark probably is that way. I would like to see him play bigger roles if he was willing to.
Right.
This might be hard to answer, but we all have best moments on stage. Do you remember one? Or what makes a moment amazing for you?
Really living in the moment with another actor and feeling that you have a real connection with the audience and you're leeching off their energy. I think the biggest moment for me has been that great long monologue at the beginning of the 3rd act of Our Town, which has a lot going on and ends up in very direct address to the audience, which is a neat thing to do. Mm-hmm. So I'd say that was my biggest moment so far at RLT.
That was a great show. Great show. What is the funniest thing that ever went wrong on stage?
I guess the funniest thing in retrospect, not at the time, exactly. Is what went wrong at Puna the Fuck Dog, which was I started playing narrator 1 at the beginning of the show, and I came out with a dagger and started berating and threatening the audience for being unconcerned about the fate of children. And I started talking about Manhattan and the people who were cruel and thoughtless in Manhattan. And then I moved, I guess, to Staten Island. And about that point, two people from the insane asylum in white coats were supposed to burst through the side door and have at me, and they didn't. And so I'm sure I ended up berating every borough in New York by the time the patter of little feet was heard as they raced around to the main entrance and had at me that way. And the reason that they didn't enter the side door is it was locked somehow.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Everybody's fear. If you couldn't be an actor, what is a profession you would want to do in the theater arts?
None.
No, not writing?
Well, I guess I could try writing, but I certainly wouldn't want to be a director. God bless them. And I certainly wouldn't want to be a tech person. I was that one time, and it terrified me. And I wouldn't want to be a stage manager. Yes, writing, I guess it would be.
If you could go back in time and talk to the younger version of yourself when you first started acting, what advice would you give yourself?
When you go to an audition, no matter how thick the director is, do what he wants you to do. Give him what he asks for, rather than playing what you know is the right way to play the part. I think I've lost 2 or 3 parts by not doing that, and I have to keep reminding myself of that. So that's what I would tell my younger self.
It's tough.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite show that you were in?
Well, I'd say I Hate Hamlet and Death Trap, because they're clever parts. And I would say Our Town, because of the great speeches. But although it sounds déclassé, I don't know if the answer to that isn't The Dining Room, because of the great parts you really get to sink your teeth into, especially the older men, which I tend to play. I love that show.
Well, that's very interesting because I said the same thing, and so did Dee.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, great minds think alike.
Yes.
So what's the first thing you want to do when life goes back to semi-normal?
Act.
What?
Act.
Yeah.
What's the first thing you want to do?
Well, I say act, but I didn't have to say, well, see my friends, go see theater.
No, well, I think the real answer is act.
Yeah. Yeah. After I go to a restaurant and have somebody wait on me. That's my number one thing.
Well, May 8th is coming up. Whatever exactly is supposed to happen.
I don't know. Well, this is great. This has been lots of fun, Chris. Thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
And I look forward to seeing both of you in the real world.
Yes, indeed.